Keanu Reeves walked into his ex-wife's wedding, heart heavy with memories, facing the man who had replaced him. Everyone expected silence, maybe tension, but what he said next left the entire room frozen. No one could believe his words, and one question lingered in everyone's mind. What did Keanu just do? Before we continue this incredible story, let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel, because tomorrow we have another inspiring story you won't want to miss. Keanu Reeves sat at his kitchen table, the morning sunlight spilling across the polished surface. A cream-colored envelope rested in front of him, elegant and understated, its calligraphy familiar yet formal. His fingers hovered over it for a moment longer than necessary, tracing the delicate strokes of her handwriting. It wasn't just an invitation, it was a portal into a past he had carefully packed away, moments of laughter, arguments, shared dreams, and quiet heartbreaks. He felt a pang of nostalgia, sharp but tempered by the years that had passed, and wondered if he was ready to confront all of it at once. He remembered the first time they had met, the way she had laughed at his terrible jokes, the ease with which they shared stories, the unspoken understanding that seemed to flow effortlessly between them. They had built a life together, a mosaic of small, beautiful moments. Late-night drives with the city lights dancing on the windshield, long walks through the park discussing everything from philosophy to the most trivial observations, and quiet evenings at home filled with nothing but shared presence. He remembered the heartbreak too, though, the arguments that had escalated from misunderstandings, the silence that had grown too long between them, the realization that love alone wasn't enough to keep two people together. Yet, there had been no animosity in the end, just a quiet, mutual understanding that they needed different paths. Keanu picked up the envelope and turned it over in his hands. The words on the front made his pulse quicken in a way that was both familiar and strange. He was proud of the man he had become, proud of the life he had built since then. Yet a quiet part of him hesitated. Was attending appropriate? Would it feel like intrusion, or was it an act of respect? Of support? His mind raced through every scenario he could imagine, the awkward conversations, the polite smiles, the possibility of bumping into old friends who might ask questions he wasn't ready to answer. And yet, alongside the apprehension there was curiosity. A part of him wanted to witness this new chapter in her life, to see her happy, to know that she was surrounded by love and respect. The thought of closure surfaced unexpectedly, carrying with it weight he hadn't realized he still bore. Closure wasn't something he had actively sought in the past. It had been assumed that time would heal all wounds. But now, looking at the envelope, he recognized that closure wasn't a destination, it was an act. Attending her wedding could be a way to honor what they had shared, to acknowledge the past, without dwelling in it. He wondered if closure meant letting go completely, or if it simply meant standing still for a moment, appreciating the journey that had brought them both to this point. His fingers lingered over the envelope, the paper warm under his touch, and he realized that the decision wasn't just about etiquette. It was about himself, about who he wanted to be when faced with the echoes of the past. Keanu set the envelope down and leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes for a moment. He let the memories wash over him, unfiltered. He remembered the way her eyes would light up when she talked about something she loved, how she could make him laugh even when he thought nothing could. He remembered the quiet moments too, the small, almost imperceptible gestures that had meant more than any grand declaration of love. How she would rest her hand on his shoulder when words weren't enough. How she seemed to know when he needed space or support without him having to say a word. Those memories were bittersweet, reminders of intimacy and connection that had shaped him into the man he was today. The decision to attend her wedding wasn't as simple as opening an envelope. He thought about his current life, the routines and obligations that kept him grounded. There were projects, meetings, and commitments that demanded his attention, things he had meticulously scheduled to keep momentum in his career. Yet this wasn't about business, and he recognized that immediately. This was about relationships, about human connection, about acknowledging the story they had shared. It wasn't a question of duty or social obligation. It was about integrity, about choosing to show up even when it might be uncomfortable. The envelope felt heavier in his hands now, as though it carried not just an invitation, but a responsibility. To himself, to her, to the people they had been and the people they had become. He imagined the wedding itself, the soft music, the floral arrangements, the way she would glide through the room with the kind of grace that had always captivated him. He pictured her standing at the altar, the happiness in her eyes, and he felt a strange mixture of anticipation and anxiety. What would it be like to be in that space, to witness her joy firsthand? Would he be able to maintain composure, to honor the moment without letting old feelings cloud the experience? He thought about the possibility of meeting her new husband, the man who would now hold the place beside her in life's most intimate moments. There was a ripple of uncertainty in that thought, a natural human response. Yet he also felt a sense of curiosity. He wanted to understand, not intrude, to participate in a celebration of love without letting ego or jealousy interfere. Keanu reflected on the years that had passed since their separation. He had grown, he had learned, and he had discovered new ways of loving. Not the possessive, desperate kind, but something quieter, steadier, more mature. He recognized that attending the wedding wasn't just for her, it was for him as well. It was an opportunity to honor his own growth, to demonstrate that he could celebrate someone else's happiness without needing it to revolve around him. It was a way to practice generosity of spirit, to acknowledge that life was larger than any single narrative, that joy could coexist with lingering nostalgia. He allowed himself a small, steadying breath, imagining the act of accepting the invitation as a first step toward clarity, toward understanding the full measure of closure he sought. Keanu set the invitation down and exhaled slowly. The decision weighed on him not as a matter of etiquette, but as a reflection of respect and the life they had once shared. He thought about their laughter, late-night conversations, and the quiet understanding that had bonded them. Part of him still felt protective, still wanted to safeguard her happiness, yet he knew attending wasn't about control. It was about presence, honoring her joy and the memories that had shaped them. Practical questions surfaced: what to wear, how to enter, and how to navigate conversations with people he didn't know. Would his presence feel welcome or create tension? He realized these were minor concerns compared to the opportunity the invitation represented. To engage consciously with the past, to balance memory and reality, heart and social context. Accepting meant moving forward with grace, embracing the moment without erasing himself or overstepping boundaries. He visualized the evening, smiling, offering congratulations, maybe exchanging a few words with her new husband that conveyed respect and goodwill. That vision brought calm and a tentative excitement. He understood that closure wasn't an endpoint, but a process, acknowledging shared history, accepting the present, and celebrating someone else's happiness without diminishing his own. Finally, he picked up his phone and confirmed his attendance. The act felt symbolic, a step toward embracing the unknown. He leaned back, letting a sense of anticipation settle over him. The wedding would be emotional, possibly awkward, but also an opportunity to honor love in all its forms. For the first time, he felt ready, not just to witness her new life, but to do so with authenticity, dignity, and a quiet openness to whatever the day might bring. Keanu stood in front of his wardrobe, running a hand along the fabric of his suits. The wedding invitation weighed heavily in his mind, even as he examined the folds and creases of his clothes. Each choice felt like more than just selecting an outfit. It was a reflection of how he intended to enter this significant moment of his life. Neutral tones, classic tailoring, understated elegance. He wanted to show respect without drawing unnecessary attention. His fingers lingered over a charcoal gray suit, appreciating the simplicity and refinement. It was a choice that said, "I am here, I belong, but I am not overshadowing anyone." The attention to detail mirrored the thoughtfulness he wanted to bring to the day itself. down to the words he might say and the way he would stand in a room full of people who represented both his past and the life she was building. He moved to the mirror and studied his reflection. Practicing greetings and small talk became a ritual, a preparation not just for etiquette but for emotional balance. "Congratulations," he rehearsed softly. "I'm so happy for you." Each phrase felt fragile, heavy with the weight of sincerity and history. His mind wandered through memories of their marriage, recalling both laughter and conflict, the easy camaraderie they once shared, and the silent frustrations that eventually led them apart. He remembered her smile, the way she used to tilt her head when she disagreed with him, the quiet resilience that had both drawn him in and challenged him constantly. This reflection wasn't about regret or longing, it was about understanding, about acknowledging the entirety of the story they had written together, and preparing himself to honor it without hesitation or distraction. Even as he prepared physically, his thoughts lingered on the internal work he had done since their separation. He had learned to let go of attachment, to practice mindfulness in every interaction, to prioritize authentic connection over appearances or expectations. This wedding was the ultimate test of that growth. He reminded himself that being present, offering genuine congratulations, and holding space for her happiness were more important than any lingering fears or ego-driven impulses. His assistant, noticing the pensive expression on his face, quietly offered a supportive nod. Keanu acknowledged it with a brief smile, appreciating the unspoken understanding. Every detail of his preparation was a meditation on control, presence, and empathy, reinforcing the emotional readiness that would be required for the evening ahead. Keanu sat at his desk for a moment, reviewing a small notebook where he had jotted down thoughts and reminders, not about schedules or appointments, but about intention. What did he truly want to convey when he arrived at the wedding? Respect, warmth, calm, closure. Each word he had written was deliberate, a compass for navigating what could easily become an emotionally charged evening. He imagined approaching her, offering a genuine smile, extending his hand to her new husband, and finding the balance between familiarity and appropriate distance. The rehearsal wasn't just about politeness. It was about protecting the fragile equilibrium between his past and the life she was now building with someone else. He repeated the greetings softly under his breath, each phrase infused with sincerity. "Congratulations. I wish you both the very best. Truly." As he practiced, flashes of memory intertwined with the present moment. He remembered quiet evenings spent together, the way laughter had once filled rooms, the arguments that had tested their patience, and the unspoken dreams they had chased side by side. Each recollection was tinged with emotion, not regret, but awareness. He had loved her deeply, with an intensity that now translated into careful consideration of how he would act. This wedding wasn't a moment to relive old wounds or assert his place in her story. It was a moment to honor her choice, celebrate her happiness, and, in doing so, affirm his own growth. He reflected on the lessons learned: communication, patience, empathy, and the importance of embracing the present rather than clinging to the past. Even as anticipation built, anxiety was never far beneath the surface. He considered her new husband, a figure who represented the life she had chosen beyond him. The thought of meeting him, extending a hand, exchanging words, and navigating the unspoken tension filled Keanu with a quiet nervousness. How would he present himself? How much of the old familiarity should be acknowledged, and how much should remain in the past? He ran through scenarios in his mind, each one balancing politeness with emotional honesty. The duality of excitement and apprehension created a tension he had not anticipated. Friends who stopped by to check on him noticed the subtle furrow in his brow, the way he paused mid-measure as if measuring each thought against some internal scale. The wedding loomed not just as an event, but as a pivotal emotional test, a moment where he would have to demonstrate the growth and understanding he had cultivated over the years. Finally, Keanu moved on to the outfit itself. He stood before the mirror, adjusting his suit jacket, straightening the tie and smoothing the cuffs of his shirt. Every detail mattered. Not to impress anyone, but to feel grounded, composed, and ready for the delicate social navigation ahead. He wanted to look like himself, confident yet approachable, unassuming yet present. It wasn't vanity, it was preparation. The clothes were armor for an emotional battlefield he anticipated silently, a way to meet the evening with dignity and grace. As he dressed, he let his mind wander back to specific moments that had defined their marriage. There were the long drives talking about future dreams, the quiet nights reading side by side, and the small acts of care that had once seemed ordinary but now held immense significance. There were also the conflicts, the misunderstandings, and the moments of heartbreak that had eventually led them to part ways. Each memory was neither sweet nor bitter alone, but a blend of both, forming the complex emotional landscape he now carried. He realized that his current nervousness wasn't fear, it was respect for the life she had built, for the choices she had made, and for the love they had once shared. The assistants and friends who helped him with the final touches of preparation noticed his quiet intensity. He answered their questions politely, but his thoughts seemed elsewhere. Occasionally, a friend would comment on his unusual calm before such a significant event, prompting him to smile faintly, acknowledging the truth without breaking the moment's introspection. In those small interactions, the foreshadowing of the evening's emotional intensity began to settle into place. He could anticipate the looks, the questions, the subtle shifts in conversation, and he prepared himself not just to respond, but to be present fully and authentically. Before leaving for the wedding, Keanu took a deep breath and glanced once more at the mirror. There was a subtle transformation, an air of readiness, of mindfulness, of someone who had faced internal challenges and emerged more self-aware. This wasn't just a wedding, it was a ceremony of reflection, acceptance, and quiet courage. He understood that tonight he would be navigating not only the physical space of the event, but also the emotional territory of his past, present, and future. With one final nod to himself in the mirror, he walked toward the door, aware that the evening ahead held lessons, revelations, and perhaps moments of silent connection he could not yet imagine. The car pulled up to the entrance of the wedding venue, and Keanu took a moment to let his eyes adjust to the scene before him. It was an elegant estate nestled among rolling gardens, with sunlight glinting off crystal chandeliers that hung just beyond the large glass doors. The manicured lawns were dotted with clusters of guests dressed in their finest attire, and laughter mingled with the soft notes of a string quartet playing nearby. "Go wand," her grandfather. Every detail spoke of care, of love, of a day meticulously planned to celebrate the union of two people. Keanu inhaled slowly, letting the atmosphere wash over him. There was beauty here, a warmth that reminded him why love was worth remembering even after loss. As he stepped out of the car, he noticed subtle touches that seemed almost familiar, tiny details that tugged at memories from years past. A floral arrangement reminiscent of the first bouquet he had given her, the gentle glow of candlelight that had once flickered during quiet dinners, and even the way the sunlight reflected off the water fountain in the courtyard brought back a wave of nostalgia. These details weren't identical to the past, but they echoed it, like fragments of a shared history carefully woven into the present moment. Keanu felt a quiet swell in his chest, a mix of admiration for the beauty of the day and the bittersweet acknowledgement of how life had changed. Guests began to notice him as he approached, some offering nods of recognition, others whispering softly in surprise. He returned polite smiles, keeping his exterior composed, steady, approachable. Yet beneath the calm, anticipation pulsed like a quiet drumbeat. Every interaction carried the potential for tension, for awkwardness, for moments that could unravel the careful balance he hoped to maintain. He reminded himself to be present, to engage with sincerity rather than expectation, to observe without judgment, to offer kindness without overstepping. The inner dialogue was as deliberate as his outward composure. He knew the evening would test him, but he also understood that it was an opportunity to witness happiness, to show respect, and perhaps to find his own quiet closure in the midst of celebration. As he moved closer to the entrance, Keanu's attention shifted between the elegance of the venue and the faces of people moving through it. There was a visual contrast between the tranquility and refinement of the event and the tension that lingered in his own chest. He was part of the scene, yet separate from it, an observer and a participant at once. The sunlight bouncing off the crystal and glass mirrored his own conflicting emotions, clarity and reflection, brilliance and fragility intertwined. With each step forward, he felt the duality of admiration for the setting and the heartache for what had been and what could never return. Every smile he offered, every polite nod he made, was a small exercise in grace, a deliberate choice to honor the moment while remaining fully aware of the emotions it stirred deep inside him. Keanu adjusted the cuff of his jacket as he walked across the stone pathway, trying to steady the rhythm of his heartbeat. The scent of fresh flowers mixed with the crisp outdoor air, a subtle reminder of spring mornings he had once shared with her. He noticed the meticulous arrangement of chairs along the aisle, each adorned with delicate ribbons that fluttered lightly in the breeze. Every detail spoke of care and thoughtfulness, of a love story that had now moved forward into new chapters. He paused for a moment to take it all in, appreciating the artistry and emotion embedded in the environment, even as a quiet ache lingered beneath his composure. Guests moved with graceful ease around him, offering polite nods and soft smiles as they caught sight of him. A few murmurs of surprise rippled through small clusters, curiosity mixed with recognition. He returned each greeting with measured warmth, careful to maintain a balance between friendliness and discretion. Some faces brought memories flooding back, friends and colleagues who had known him during the earlier years of their life together, and faces and colleagues who had known him during the earlier years of their life together. He wondered briefly if they would notice the subtle changes within him, the growth he had nurtured in the years since their separation. Each interaction became a delicate dance, a negotiation between presence and restraint, between acknowledgement and avoidance of unnecessary tension. As he approached the main entrance, the double doors opened to reveal the interior of the venue. Light poured through tall windows, illuminating polished wooden floors and ornate floral arrangements that seemed to glow with life. Crystal chandeliers refracted the sunlight, casting shimmering patterns across the room, a kaleidoscope of elegance and warmth. He allowed himself a moment to simply observe. The smiles of arriving guests, the gentle clinking of glasses, the soft hum of conversation, all of it was imbued with joy and anticipation, a vivid contrast to the nervous energy he carried within. Every detail seemed designed to celebrate love in its purest form, and yet he felt the weight of his own past pressing quietly against the edges of his consciousness. Keanu's mind drifted briefly to the upcoming encounter with her new husband. Thoughts of potential awkwardness flickered through his awareness, but he reminded himself of the importance of composure, of being present in the moment rather than anticipating discomfort. The anxiety was there, unavoidable, but it could be tempered by clarity of intention. He had come to honor her happiness, to witness the union, to celebrate life's unfolding rather than dwell on what had ended. It was a conscious choice, a reflection of the personal growth he had cultivated over the years. As he stepped fully into the room, he carried a composed exterior, yet beneath it, a quiet pulse of anticipation, a mixture of respect, curiosity, and lingering emotion that would guide his every interaction throughout the evening. Keanu moved further into the room, letting his gaze sweep over the assembled guests. The soft murmur of conversations created a gentle backdrop, a comforting hum that contrasted with the tension he felt inside. He noticed small, familiar details, the way certain bouquets mirrored arrangements she had once adored, the placement of photographs that subtly honored moments from their shared history. Each element brought a pang of nostalgia, a reminder of love that had transformed rather than disappeared. He acknowledged these memories quietly, letting them coexist with his awareness of the present. The closer he drew to the central gathering space, the more visible the dynamics between guests became. Old friends and colleagues engaged in warm exchanges, laughter punctuating the air, while new faces carried expressions of curiosity and admiration. Some looked toward him with raised eyebrows, whispers following in their wake. He met these glances with calm, a subtle smile and a nod, choosing to convey grace rather than defensiveness. The recognition and curiosity from strangers underscored the unusual nature of his presence. Yet he felt no need to explain, no need to justify. He was here to honor the occasion, to support her happiness, and to embody the dignity he had cultivated over the years. As he approached the area where the ceremony would soon commence, the intricate balance of light and space struck him. Sunlight filtered through crystal accents, casting reflections that danced across the floor and walls, an interplay of brilliance and warmth that mirrored the conflicting emotions he carried. Every detail seemed infused with meaning: the arrangement of the chairs, the gentle sway of floral ribbons, the subtle scent of freshly cut blooms mingling with the crisp air. It was a space carefully designed to celebrate love, to elevate the moment beyond the ordinary, and he felt the weight of both admiration and quiet tension as he prepared to take his place among the gathered attendees. In this moment, Keanu's internal world was a delicate mixture of anticipation and reflection. He recognized the significance of the evening, the magnitude of witnessing someone he had once loved pledge themselves to another. And yet, he was grounded by an inner resolve, a reminder that presence mattered more than past grievances. The contrast between his outward composure and the emotional currents beneath the surface defined this entrance, marking the beginning of an evening that promised both challenge and profound insight. Every step forward was a conscious decision to embrace what lay ahead, to navigate the space between memory and the present, to honor the beauty of the moment while holding his own integrity intact. Keanu first saw her as he moved through the crowd, a vision framed by the soft glow of the afternoon sun filtering through the venue's windows. She stood near the floral archway, her wedding gown flowing with a delicate elegance that seemed to embody the very essence of joy. The way she carried herself, poised yet relaxed, commanded attention without effort. He felt a sudden tightening in his chest, a mixture of admiration and the quiet ache of memory, the kind that only time and shared history can cultivate. Her smile was gentle, radiant, but not directed solely at him. It was the smile of someone fully present, engaged in a moment that belonged entirely to her and her new partner. Keanu's gaze lingered, absorbing the details. The way her hair caught the light, the subtle curve of her lips, the confidence in the way she held herself. Each nuance evoked recollections of years past. Laughter shared on quiet mornings, whispered conversations in the still of night, even the arguments that had once tested the strength of their bond. Those memories surfaced unbidden, woven seamlessly with the admiration he felt in this moment. He allowed himself a brief internal pause, taking in the scene with the same care he might observe a work of art. This was not a confrontation or a test, but a chance to witness her happiness, to acknowledge her new chapter while affirming his own growth. The pang of nostalgia was sharp, but tempered by gratitude. He remembered the ways they had loved, the lessons learned, and the eventual understanding that had carried them to this point. His purpose in attending crystallized with each heartbeat: to offer presence, not intrusion, to extend goodwill without expectation, and to find a measure of closure in honoring what had once been profound and meaningful. The gentle rustle of her gown as she moved, the light laughter shared with friends nearby, all created a sense of harmony that contrasted with the storm of emotions in Keanu's mind. He recognized the balance between observing and intruding, a fine line he intended to navigate with care. Every gesture, every subtle expression on her face became a mirror, reflecting both their shared past and the paths they had chosen individually. He reminded himself quietly that this was not about reclaiming or contesting anything, but about acknowledging her joy and embracing his own capacity to witness it without resentment or regret. As he approached slightly closer, he noticed the subtle gestures she made with those around her. Light touches on an arm, the way she tilted her head in conversation, the effortless warmth that drew people near. It reminded him of all the moments in their marriage when she had radiated that same energy, moments that had made him feel seen and understood. Those memories stirred a mixture of longing and appreciation, a recognition that what they had shared had shaped who he was today. It felt a quiet smile tug at the corners of his mouth, a private acknowledgement of the history between them, even as he reminded himself that this was not his moment to dominate. Keanu's eyes shifted to her new husband, who stood confidently by her side, smiling with a gentle pride that spoke of admiration and care. There was a strength in the way he held himself, a presence that complemented her grace. Keanu felt a flicker of uncertainty, a question about what he might say, how he might interact without causing awkwardness or tension. Yet that moment of doubt was quickly replaced by a calm determination. He had come to honor the occasion, to witness happiness, not to challenge it. The thought settled in him like a steadying hand, easing the tension in his chest, reminding him that respect and composure were paramount. He allowed his mind to drift briefly, recalling smaller, intimate memories that were invisible to the outside world. The quiet dinners in their early years, the conversations about dreams and fears late at night, the way her laughter could fill a room and leave him smiling long after. These reflections mingled with the present, creating an emotional tapestry that was both bittersweet and comforting. He felt a sense of reverence for the life they had shared, and a deep gratitude that they had both emerged intact, capable of witnessing this new chapter without bitterness. A soft breeze carried the scent of flowers from the archway, a detail that pulled him fully into the sensory moment. He noticed how the sunlight hit her hair, catching every strand and illuminating it with warmth. Her expression, calm and unhurried, conveyed peace and happiness, qualities that he had always admired in her. Keanu reminded himself, silently, that his presence here was an offering, a gesture of closure and support. He did not need to speak immediately or act dramatically. Simply being there, present and composed, was enough to convey his respect. This internal affirmation steadied him, a quiet preparation for the emotional encounters that lay ahead. Keanu took a measured breath, grounding himself in the moment. His eyes lingered on her, appreciating the subtle confidence she exuded, the effortless grace in every movement. There was no trace of tension, no hint of doubt, only clarity and calm. That vision reminded him why he had loved her so deeply, not only for her presence, but for the way she made ordinary moments feel extraordinary. The memory of their shared laughter, their whispered secrets in quiet corners, and even the arguments that tested their patience all blended together, forming a mosaic of experiences that had shaped them both. As he adjusted the cuff of his sleeve, he reminded himself of the purpose of attending. This was not about reclaiming what had been lost or disrupting the happiness before him. It was about closure, about witnessing her joy and honoring the life they had once shared. That intention steadied him, like a lighthouse in the middle of turbulent waters. He felt a growing sense of inner peace, tempered with the natural ache of nostalgia. It was a reminder that love can take many forms, and sometimes the purest expression of it is wishing well from a distance. A subtle nod passed between them, a brief acknowledgement that spoke volumes without a single word. She recognized his presence, and he recognized hers, and in that quiet exchange lay a shared understanding of respect and the passage of time. Keanu allowed himself a moment to simply observe, taking in the laughter of other guests, the gentle clinking of glasses, and the soft hum of conversation that filled the venue. Each detail anchored him in the present, while connecting him to memories of their shared past. It was a delicate balance between reverence and letting go, a tension he had learned to navigate over the years. He straightened his posture, a silent preparation for the interactions to come. Every step, every glance, and every breath felt deliberate, a conscious choice to approach this day with dignity. In the quiet of his mind, he replayed the lessons learned from their time together: patience, empathy, and the importance of allowing others to find their happiness. That reflection strengthened him, giving him the courage to be fully present without fear or expectation. Keanu's heart carried both the weight of what had been and the lightness of acceptance. Finally, he allowed a small smile to surface, a private gesture of connection and goodwill. This smile was not for anyone else. It was a reflection of his understanding, a signal that he was ready for whatever the day would bring. The moment felt suspended in time, a perfect intersection of past, present, and future. With that sense of calm resolve, he reminded himself one last time. He was here to support, to honor, and to embrace closure. The first step had been taken, and the rest of the day would unfold naturally, guided by authenticity, respect, and the quiet strength he carried within. Keanu moved gracefully through the crowd, his presence quiet yet noticeable. Each handshake and nod was measured, polite, but carried the subtle weight of the unspoken, everyone aware that he was here for a deeply personal reason. He offered warm smiles to old family friends he recognized, engaging in light conversation about travel, work, and shared memories of the past. Even these simple exchanges held layers of complexity, as he weighed how much to reveal, how much to keep private, and how to maintain a balance between cordiality and emotional restraint. He noticed how the children darted through the gathering, laughter and shouts echoing between the floral arrangements and crystal chandeliers. One little girl, noticing his calm smile, ran over and tugged at his sleeve, asking innocently if he would dance. Keanu knelt slightly to meet her eye level, replying with a soft chuckle that made her giggle. The moment was small but grounding, reminding him that life carried simple joys even amid complex emotions. It was a tender interlude in an afternoon poised on the edge of potential tension, a reminder of innocence and unguarded happiness. Across the room, couples whispered to each other, sharing glances and quiet jokes, and Keanu found himself observing the subtle dynamics of these relationships. He compared them to the one he had shared with his ex-wife, reflecting on the ebb and flow of intimacy, the moments of laughter and frustration, and the eventual understanding that love can change shape without losing meaning. These reflections were private, internal contemplations that lent depth to his experience in the room. He could see hints of these same dynamics in her interactions with her new partner, a gentle reminder of the life she was building now. A coworker approached him with a wide smile, complimenting him on his appearance and inquiring about his latest projects. Keanu responded graciously, listening carefully while offering polite anecdotes. His focus, however, remained partially elsewhere, drawn to the rhythm of the room, the mingling voices, the clinking of glasses, the soft background music that seemed to underscore each moment with its own emotional resonance. Each interaction, each glance exchanged, was a step along an invisible path, guiding him toward the eventual encounter he had been both anticipating and dreading. As Keanu moved further into the crowd, he caught sight of familiar faces from past gatherings, friends who had known both him and his ex-wife long before their separation. Conversations were polite, light, and tinged with curiosity. People whispered softly, noticing the tension that seemed to cling to him like an invisible cloak. Keanu could feel their eyes occasionally following him, measuring how he would react, anticipating the moment when the personal history between him and the bride might unfold before them. It was a subtle awareness that heightened the emotional weight of every gesture, every word. He paused near a small group discussing the ceremony, their smiles bright, voices warm. They complimented the setting, the flowers, and the meticulous planning that made the venue feel both lavish and intimate. Keanu responded graciously, nodding and sharing soft observations about the beauty of the day. But beneath these casual exchanges, his mind wandered, tracing the moments that had led to this gathering. The laughter and tears shared with his ex-wife, the times they had held each other through quiet storms, the arguments and reconciliations, all flowed silently beneath the surface, giving every polite nod an undercurrent of nostalgia. Nearby, he noticed a couple dancing slowly, their eyes locked in a shared moment that mirrored the deep connections he had once known. For an instant, he allowed himself a pang of longing, remembering the intimate dances, the quiet nights spent talking, the comfort of mutual understanding. Yet he reminded himself that the purpose of attending today was not to dwell on the past, but to honor the present, to witness the joy of someone he had once loved, and to offer genuine support. This balance between reflection and composure was delicate, and every interaction with the guests tested it subtly. Keanu's gaze drifted to a corner where children were gathered around a musician, clapping and laughing with uninhibited delight. The innocence of their joy was contagious, and he smiled quietly, feeling the tension in his shoulders ease ever so slightly. A young boy accidentally knocked over a chair, and Keanu instinctively moved to steady it, catching the boy's surprised eye and sharing a small, reassuring grin. It was a fleeting, simple human connection, yet in that moment, he realized how grounding it was, how reminders of life's gentle rhythms could steady even the most complex emotional storms. As the evening sunlight softened, casting golden hues across the venue, Keanu drifted toward a group of relatives he had known in earlier years. The conversations were warm but cautious, each person carefully choosing their words, aware of the silent narrative unfolding between him and the bride. Keanu listened more than he spoke, nodding politely, offering gentle smiles, but his mind remained alert, anticipating any moment that might draw him closer to the emotional core of the evening. Every laugh, every shared story, every compliment carried the weight of 100 unspoken reflections. A friend approached, offering a quiet comment about how elegant the bride looked. Keanu responded with a soft, measured tone, acknowledging the beauty of the day while keeping his emotions tightly controlled. Inside, a small part of him ached, remembering the times he had once admired that same beauty in a more personal context, the intimate compliments and private smiles that had belonged only to them. Yet he reminded himself, again, that today was about support, dignity, and presence, not the reclamation of the past. He needed to navigate the crowd with the same careful precision he had applied to every significant moment of his life, respectful, composed, and quietly attentive. Near the dance floor, couples twirled with effortless grace, Keanu observed, noting how joy could manifest in the simplest gestures: a hand held, a laugh shared, an encouraging glance. These small moments highlighted the contrasts between past and present, between memories of shared intimacy and the new lives they now inhabited. Each observation reminded him of the lessons learned. Love can endure, even when transformed. Closure does not require the erasure of emotion. Genuine goodwill can coexist with the lingering echoes of history. He moved toward the refreshment area, exchanging polite words with a few more guests. Each interaction was brief, yet every nod, every smile, carried subtle significance. He recognized glances of curiosity, of anticipation, as if the assembled crowd sensed a pivotal moment approaching, a juncture where personal history might intersect with the ceremony in unexpected ways. That awareness heightened his internal focus, sharpening his emotions while reinforcing the necessity of composure. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky with soft pinks and purples, Keanu paused for a moment near a window, taking in the scene. Laughter and music blended into a harmonious backdrop, and he allowed himself a fleeting sense of calm. Yet beneath that serenity, tension simmered. Everyone could feel it, even if unspoken. The moment when he would inevitably interact more directly with his ex-wife and her new husband was approaching. Keanu exhaled slowly, steadying himself for the complex, emotional interactions yet to come, aware that the balance between respect, nostalgia, and emotional honesty would define the rest of the evening. Keanu took a slow breath, steadying himself as he moved through the crowd toward her. The soft murmur of conversations faded in his mind, replaced by the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. He approached her with measured steps, careful to maintain composure, Yet beneath the calm exterior, a rush of memories tugged at him. Seeing her again in her wedding gown, radiant and poised, stirred the familiar blend of admiration, nostalgia, and a quiet longing for simpler time. He reminded himself that today was not about the past, but about acknowledgement, respect, and genuine goodwill. When he reached her, she turned slightly, meeting his gaze with a subtle, knowing smile. It was a smile that spoke volumes, recognition of shared history, acknowledgement of growth, and the unspoken understanding that what had been between them had shaped who they were, even as they moved forward in separate lives. Keanu returned the smile, his own expression a careful balance of warmth and dignity. He spoke first, his words gentle but sincere. "You look happy," he said, and it wasn't just a polite observation. It was a heartfelt acknowledgement of her joy, free of envy or regret. She nodded, her eyes reflecting gratitude, and replied softly, "I'm glad you're here." They stepped slightly aside from the surrounding crowd, finding a quiet corner where the ambient sounds softened. Keanu allowed himself a brief moment to absorb the reality of the occasion, the elegance of the ceremony, the laughter of friends and family, and the unmistakable sense that this was a turning point for both of them. In that stillness, he felt the weight of past misunderstandings, unspoken words, and unresolved feelings begin to ease. The mere act of being present, offering support without expectation, carried a profound sense of closure. As they exchanged a few words about the day itself, memories naturally began to surface. They laughed quietly over a minor mishap from their wedding years ago, recalling how a mismanaged seating chart had caused brief chaos among their guests. The humor in that memory broke the tension, and Keanu felt a lightness that had been absent for years. It reminded him that their shared history, while complex, had moments of genuine joy and connection that could still be appreciated without rekindling old emotions. Keanu's focus remained on maturity and grace. He understood that this encounter was not a test of lingering affection, but a reflection of personal growth. Each word he spoke, each gesture he made, was measured to convey respect, admiration, and support. He found reassurance in the fact that they could share laughter and warmth without the complications of romantic entanglement. The balance between emotional honesty and restraint was delicate yet necessary. He reminded himself that closure came not from rekindling the past, but from embracing the present with integrity. Keanu noticed how naturally she moved through the space, how her posture radiated confidence and contentment. There was no trace of tension or hesitation in her demeanor, only an ease that made the moment both comforting and slightly bittersweet. He found himself recalling the countless hours they had spent together, navigating life's uncertainties, supporting one another through small victories and setbacks alike. Those shared experiences had left an indelible mark, shaping their understanding of love, patience, and compromise. He allowed himself a quiet smile, acknowledging that their journey had been meaningful, even if it had ended differently than they once envisioned. Their conversation drifted to mutual acquaintances attending the wedding, a gentle way to bridge past and present. Keanu spoke of friends and colleagues, sharing brief anecdotes and light-hearted observations, while she responded with her own stories, laughing softly at moments that reminded them both of how much time had passed. The laughter was unforced, genuine, and carried a subtle undercurrent of familiarity that only long shared history could produce. In those exchanges, he sensed the unspoken acknowledgement of what they had learned from one another. The lessons, the joys, the struggles, all distilled into a shared understanding that needed no embellishment or explanation. A brief pause settled between them, filled with a quiet intensity that spoke louder than words. Keanu took in the details, the gentle curve of her smile, the warmth in her eyes, the way she tilted her head slightly when she listened. Each small gesture conveyed comfort, respect, and trust. It reminded him that their connection, though transformed, remained significant. The awareness of this bond brought a wave of calm, a recognition that he could honor the past without being pulled back into it. He felt a sense of responsibility to maintain that balance, to ensure that every word and movement reflected sincerity and maturity. Keanu's thoughts shifted inward, reflecting on the personal growth that had led him here. He recalled the moments of solitude, the times when he had confronted his own emotions, learning to process grief, disappointment, and longing with honesty. The practice of mindfulness, the deliberate effort to cultivate empathy, and the commitment to authentic living had all guided him to this very moment. Being present for her wedding, offering warmth without expectation, was an extension of that growth. It was a testament to his ability to embrace the complexity of human relationships and honor them with integrity. Even in this quiet, seemingly ordinary exchange, the weight of the moment pressed upon him. He understood that what they were sharing was rare, the coexistence of nostalgia and acceptance, laughter and solemnity, memory and closure. It was a meeting that required emotional precision, a delicate choreography between the past and present. Keanu felt the responsibility to navigate it with grace, to offer reassurance and admiration without overstepping boundaries. At Toledo. In doing so, he reaffirmed his own values, the principles that guided his interactions and defined the person he had become. The conversation moved to lighter, more personal memories, small moments that had stayed with them over the years. Keanu recalled a trip they had taken together, sharing an anecdote that made her laugh softly. Her laughter was genuine, warm, and comforting, and Keanu felt a sense of relief at how naturally they could share these memories without tension. It was clear that time had softened old wounds, leaving only the essence of their connection intact. She complimented his calm presence, noticing how it seemed to bring reassurance and stability. Keanu listened, appreciating the sincerity in her voice and the absence of judgment. They had grown individually, yet their shared experiences had created a lasting bond of understanding and empathy. Each word exchanged reinforced the maturity they had both achieved, allowing them to honor the past without letting it overshadow the present. A brief silence followed, giving them space to absorb the moment. Keanu's thoughts briefly wandered to her new husband, but he reminded himself of his purpose, to offer support and goodwill. "You look happy," he said simply, letting sincerity guide his words. She smiled softly, acknowledging both the statement and the sentiment behind it. That small exchange carried an unspoken promise that their shared past could be respected while celebrating the present. As they parted, Keanu felt a sense of calm and closure. The tension he had anticipated was gone, replaced by quiet satisfaction. He had shown respect, shared laughter, and acknowledged the meaningful moments of their past. There was no longing, no regret, just a serene acceptance that allowed him to be fully present for the rest of the day. Stepping back into the crowd, Keanu carried with him a sense of emotional clarity. The earlier anxiety had been replaced by composure, and each smile or greeting was filtered through understanding rather than inner conflict. This private exchange had set the tone, affirming that respect, empathy, and kindness could guide even the most delicate encounters. The first words shared had achieved exactly what he had hoped: closure, goodwill, and the quiet affirmation that endings could coexist with new beginnings. Keanu took a deep breath as he was guided toward the center of the reception hall. The new husband was standing near the floral arch, exchanging polite greetings with a few of the wedding guests. His posture was confident but not overbearing, shoulders relaxed, hands occasionally gesturing as he conversed with subtle ease. Keanu's first impression was of someone who had earned his place in this moment, a man who respected the significance of the day and understood the delicacy of the relationships surrounding him. The briefcase of tension that had accompanied him since receiving the invitation suddenly felt heavier, yet more purposeful. When they were formally introduced, a polite handshake bridged the gap between strangers and potential rivals in an unspoken sense. Keanu's grip was firm yet gentle, projecting warmth without asserting dominance. The new husband returned it with equal measure. a silent acknowledgement of mutual respect. Their eyes met, and for a moment there was a quiet evaluation, each man sizing up the other not in competitiveness, but in curiosity. Keanu noticed the careful balance of pride and humility in his posture, the subtle gestures of attentiveness that suggested someone capable of protecting and cherishing the woman standing nearby. Words were chosen carefully, measured. As the initial conversation began, Keanu commented on the beauty of the ceremony, the thoughtful attention to detail in the decorations, and the warmth of the gathering. The new husband responded with gracious acceptance, his tone steady and even, reflecting an awareness of the underlying tension that always accompanied such encounters. There was an unspoken acknowledgement that this was a meeting of two men connected by a shared admiration for the same woman, each navigating the delicate dance of civility and respect. Keanu could feel the silent questions in both their minds. How would this exchange shape perceptions? Would goodwill be sufficient to prevent misunderstanding? As they spoke, Keanu's internal reflection guided his words. He recognized the importance of trust and generosity in human relationships, understanding that this was a moment to honor not only the past but also the present. Jealousy was an option, a fleeting thought he quickly dismissed. Instead, he focused on goodwill, ensuring that his demeanor conveyed admiration rather than competition. He acknowledged, even silently appreciated, the evident happiness of his ex-wife in this new chapter of her life. Each phrase, each nod was carefully weighed to ensure authenticity while maintaining emotional clarity. The atmosphere remained polite but charged, a subtle tension threading through the otherwise celebratory environment. Keanu's awareness of every gesture, every smile, was heightened. He noted the glances exchanged between other guests, some whispering, some quietly observing the interaction with mild anticipation. There was a sense that this meeting, while outwardly ordinary, held the potential for a moment of unexpected significance. Even in casual conversation, the possibility of a pause, a remark, or a gesture capable of drawing attention lingered. Keanu kept this in mind, not out of arrogance, but from an acute understanding of timing and human dynamics. The conversation began to find a natural rhythm, each man carefully listening as the other spoke. Keanu admired the new husband's composure and the way he carried himself in front of family and friends. There was an understated confidence, a quiet pride in his tone that didn't feel forced. Keanu silently acknowledged this, understanding that genuine respect could only come from sincerity. He kept his focus on the bigger picture, the happiness of his ex-wife, and the importance of leaving no room for tension or regret. Every word, every smile, and every slight nod was deliberate, a reflection of thoughtfulness rather than spontaneity. As they spoke about shared acquaintances and mutual friends, Keanu noticed subtle cues in the new husband's demeanor, the way he tilted his head slightly when listening, the brief but meaningful pauses that suggested he was considering his words carefully. Keanu found himself reflecting on the lessons learned from his own past relationships, recognizing the value of patience, empathy, and measured action. He thought about the times he had misjudged situations in the past, moments when pride or haste had clouded his judgment, and he resolved internally to approach this interaction with total awareness and grace. The wedding guests nearby continued their conversations, but their glances occasionally flicked toward the pair. There was a silent curiosity, a collective sense that something meaningful might unfold. Keanu felt this awareness as a subtle pressure, but rather than discomforting him, it heightened his clarity of purpose. He reminded himself that this meeting was not about proving anything or asserting dominance. It was about recognition, respect, and the demonstration of genuine goodwill. The new husband, equally aware of the silent observers, maintained his poise, exchanging courteous remarks without any hint of defensiveness. Keanu allowed himself a moment to silently assess his own emotions. A part of him still carried the echo of shared memories with his ex-wife. But he quickly recognized that these feelings did not need to interfere with the present. Instead, they served as a reminder of the growth he had achieved, the emotional maturity he had developed over time. He felt an odd mixture of nostalgia and calm admiration, emotions that were neither intrusive nor disruptive, but rather affirming of the path he had chosen. He could appreciate this new chapter in her life while remaining fully grounded in his own. The dialogue continued, shifting subtly toward the lighter aspects of the evening. They exchanged observations about the ceremony, complimented the food and decor, and briefly mentioned mutual friends. Keanu's intent was clear: to convey respect and goodwill without unnecessary tension or overfamiliarity. He noticed how the new husband's expressions occasionally softened when speaking about his bride, a sign of genuine care that further reassured Keanu of his intent. In turn, Keanu responded with authenticity, allowing small, thoughtful comments and light humor to diffuse any lingering awkwardness. As the conversation continued, the initial tension between Keanu and her new husband began to ease. Keanu noticed a warmth in the man's eyes when he spoke of his bride, a genuine care and devotion that Keanu could respect. The uneasy formality softened into quiet understanding. He realized there was no rivalry here, no reason for comparison, only two men connected by the same woman's happiness. Keanu reflected on human relationships and how life led people down unexpected paths. This meeting was a testament to growth, the ability to face past connections with grace rather than regret. He felt a quiet pride in himself, recognizing the capacity for goodwill, for supporting happiness without ego. It was a grounding moment, reminding him that attending the wedding was about honoring the present, celebrating joy even if it was not his own. The new husband responded with subtle nods, acknowledging Keanu's sincerity. Keanu sensed the weight of the moment, understanding that his next words carried significance. He wanted them to convey admiration and respect, leaving no room for doubt. Around them, guests seemed to sense the emotional intensity, the quiet anticipation of what might unfold between the two men, linked by one woman's past and present. Keanu's thoughts briefly returned to shared memories with his ex-wife, laughter, challenges, and lessons learned. These recollections brought no longing, only a measured nostalgia. He recognized that respect and closure went hand in hand, that acknowledging the new relationship did not diminish his own experiences. Carefully, he chose words of honesty and warmth, ensuring they would be received as intended. By the end of their exchange, the awkwardness had vanished, replaced by mutual understanding and quiet respect. Keanu felt a calm certainty. The brief interaction had achieved what he hoped for: connection without tension, admiration without envy, goodwill without complication. Surrounded by friends and family, he had honored the past, acknowledged the present, and shown the emotional maturity that defined him. The room hummed with quiet anticipation as guests settled, drinks in hand, laughter weaving through the soft murmur of conversation. Keanu observed from a discreet corner, noting how familiar faces carried expressions of joy, curiosity, and mild surprise at his presence. Children darted between legs, giggling as they chased one another, a reminder of life's simpler, lighter moments. Friends of the couple raised their glasses in informal, teasing toasts, sharing anecdotes that elicited laughter and applause. Each story revealed a facet of the bride and groom's personalities, their quirks, their devotion, and their willingness to embrace life together. Keanu listened intently, catching every nuance, aware that these moments were layered with vulnerability and authenticity. He allowed his gaze to drift toward his ex-wife, watching her smile and respond to each anecdote with warmth and delight. The way she laughed, her eyes bright with unguarded happiness, stirred a quiet emotion within him. Nostalgia mingled with admiration. He remembered her in other contexts, moments of frustration, tender evenings spent in quiet companionship, shared dreams and occasional disappointments. None of these memories carried bitterness anymore, only the gentle ache of what once was. He recognized the beauty of seeing someone flourish, knowing it had nothing to do with himself, but everything to do with genuine care and respect. Amid the laughter, Keanu began to envision his own words for the upcoming toast. He considered tone, rhythm, and content, aware that this was more than a casual speech. It needed to convey sincerity without overshadowing the celebration, humor without diminishing emotion, and humility without being self-effacing. He rehearsed phrases internally, testing how each sentiment might land, how it might reflect not just his regard for his ex-wife and her new husband, but also his understanding of love, growth, and human connection. Every detail mattered: timing, pauses, emphasis. He wanted to honor the occasion while maintaining the grace he had cultivated since their parting. Keanu's reflections deepened, moving beyond the immediate event to broader truths about life and relationships. Love, he realized, evolved in ways both expected and surprising. True support came without possessiveness, without the need for recognition, and often without overt acknowledgement. Letting go was not surrender, it was an act of courage and generosity, a gift to those who had shared life with you and a gift to oneself. These thoughts anchored him, a quiet reassurance that his forthcoming words could convey admiration and goodwill without ego or interference. As the guests settled further, the energy in the room shifted subtly. People quieted, sensing the moment approaching when speeches and toasts would begin. Keanu's attention sharpened, observing how each story shared by friends seemed to weave a tapestry of affection and connection. Laughter erupted at humorous recollections. Some brought tears, others smiles that lingered, reflecting the depth of care surrounding the couple. He noticed small gestures: a friend adjusting a boutonniere, a parent whispering encouragement to a nervous speaker, subtle glances exchanged between the bride and groom. Every detail felt alive, each interaction resonating with meaning beyond its immediate context. Keanu let his mind wander briefly to the symbolism of the occasion. Weddings were not merely about ceremony or tradition. They were acts of intentional celebration, affirming commitment, shared values, and the courage to pursue love openly. He reflected on the lessons he had absorbed over the years: the patience required in relationships, the importance of empathy, and the necessity of embracing change. His ex-wife's happiness tonight was a manifestation of those lessons, and he understood that his role here was to witness, to honor, and to contribute in a way that was meaningful yet unobtrusive. The responsibility of his upcoming toast weighed lightly, yet purposefully on him, a gentle tension mingling with anticipation. He rehearsed phrases again, refining tone and cadence, imagining the subtle shifts in voice that could transform a few sentences into a heartfelt acknowledgement. He considered opening with humor, perhaps recalling a lighthearted anecdote that only those closest would appreciate, then transitioning smoothly into admiration and sincere respect. Each word needed to carry clarity, warmth, and authenticity. Keanu pictured the reactions he hoped to evoke: smiles, nods, perhaps a glimmer of quiet reflection. Most importantly, he reminded himself that the message was not about him, but about celebrating their union, recognizing love's resilience, and demonstrating the grace he hoped to embody. In these private reflections, Keanu found a sense of calm focus. The surrounding chatter and laughter became background music to his internal preparation. He considered the rhythm of human connection, the beauty of witnessing moments of vulnerability and joy. As he silently envisioned the toast, he felt the delicate balance of honoring the past while embracing the present. Each observation, each memory, each imagined phrase anchored him further in the understanding that his presence and words could elevate the experience for everyone involved, offering admiration without intrusion, love without expectation. The chatter around him softened as the first guest approached the microphone. Keanu observed with quiet attentiveness, noting how the speaker's voice carried warmth, how pauses punctuated laughter and reflection, how sincerity bridged the room in a shared emotional pulse. Each toast revealed another layer of the couple's story, glimpses of their journey from early affection to shared growth, moments of challenge and acts of generosity that defined their bond. He felt an unexpected swell of gratitude for being allowed to witness this intimacy, even from the periphery. He glanced toward his ex-wife, noticing her posture, the subtle tilt of her head, the glow of contentment that came not from performance, but from authentic presence. Her eyes sparkled with happiness, and Keanu's respect for her radiated quietly, unspoken yet profoundly felt. It was in these moments, watching her interact with those closest to her, that he fully comprehended the power of letting go. There was no envy, no regret, only a deep appreciation for the person she had become and the life she now embraced. His thoughts returned briefly to their shared history, laughter in small apartments, long walks, quiet conversations, the challenges that had shaped them both. He stored these memories not as regrets, but as lessons, a foundation that informed the grace with which he now moved through this space. Keanu's own toast hovered in the forefront of his mind, rehearsed silently like a melody he wanted to play perfectly. He imagined the rhythm of words, the gentle inflection to signal humor, the pause to invite reflection, the sincerity to honor their journey. He reminded himself to center it not on himself, but on the celebration of love, on admiration for their union, and on the unspoken acknowledgement of resilience, growth, and human connection. In this careful preparation, he felt a calm clarity, a quiet alignment between intention and presence. As the room's energy built toward the pivotal moment, Keanu allowed himself a small, private smile. This was not a performance, not a test, but a chance to offer genuine support, to honor love, and to demonstrate the dignity that had guided him throughout his life. He understood that in the coming minutes, his words could resonate not only with the couple, but with everyone present, affirming that love, respect, and maturity were timeless gifts worth sharing. In that thought, he found a steady breath, a centered readiness, and a profound sense of purpose. The room gradually hushed as Keanu rose from his seat, his movement calm, deliberate, carrying the quiet authority of someone fully present in the moment. All eyes subtly shifted toward him, a mix of curiosity and unspoken expectation hanging in the air. There was no theatrics in his posture, no grandiose gestures, only a composed demeanor that drew attention naturally, a gravity that suggested something important was about to be shared. As he approached the microphone, he allowed himself a moment to take in the faces around him, the familiar warmth of family, the cheer of friends, the lighthearted smiles of strangers, all gathered to witness this union. He began with a soft acknowledgement of the couple, words chosen not to impress but to honor. He spoke first of admiration, of seeing his ex-wife radiate happiness and confidence, of recognizing the strength and growth that had brought her to this day. His voice was measured, sincere, and carried the subtle resonance of someone who had loved deeply, who had experienced both joy and heartbreak, and who had emerged with grace. Each word was carefully selected to convey respect without intrusion, to celebrate love without overshadowing it. He shared brief memories, light-hearted and tender, of moments from their shared past. Laughs, small victories, quiet evenings together. Each recollection framed with warmth, devoid of resentment. McLaren merely said, "AJ, I know all about you." Keanu then turned his focus subtly to her new husband, his tone shifting with gentle gravity. He spoke not as a rival, but as a witness, a supporter, emphasizing the shared responsibility of fostering happiness, of building a life rooted in trust, respect, and understanding. He acknowledged the courage it took to embrace love fully, the patience required to nurture it, and the joy that comes from commitment without expectation. His words struck a delicate balance between personal reflection and public acknowledgement, bridging the past and present with honesty and dignity. Guests listened intently, sensing the sincerity and depth of his message, recognizing that this toast was more than ceremonial. It was a heartfelt testament to human connection, maturity, and the enduring power of goodwill. The room remained still, every guest attentive to the cadence of Keanu's words, the subtle strength behind his calm exterior. He spoke of love not as possession, but as partnership, a force that flourishes when nurtured with patience, empathy, and understanding. He acknowledged the journey that had brought them all to this moment, the intertwining of histories, the lessons learned through both joy and hardship. Each phrase was deliberate, designed to honor the past without lingering, to acknowledge pain without bitterness, and to celebrate the present with genuine warmth. Turning once more to his ex-wife, he smiled softly, a reflection of quiet pride and enduring respect. He spoke of her courage, her integrity, and the grace with which she navigated life's complexities, drawing subtle nods from those who had witnessed their shared history. Keanu's tone carried neither regret nor longing. It was grounded in acceptance and affirmation, a recognition that love evolves and transforms. He shared anecdotes that highlighted growth, resilience, and mutual understanding, each story brief but poignant, gently reminding everyone that the bonds we form do not vanish. They merely take new shapes over time. The new husband listened with attentive composure, his initial guardedness softening as Keanu's words wove a narrative of trust and respect rather than judgment or comparison. Keanu acknowledged the unspoken fears and uncertainties inherent in any new marriage, offering support not through advice, but through recognition of shared humanity. He emphasized the importance of partnership, of protecting and cherishing love, and of embracing the responsibility to nurture it with sincerity and care. There was a quiet power in his delivery, a sincerity that transcended the ceremonial setting and touched the hearts of those present. Guests exchanged glances, sensing the emotional weight behind each sentence, understanding that this toast was unlike any they had witnessed. A bridge between past and present, a testament to the grace of letting go and the courage to honor happiness wherever it blooms. A hush settled over the room as Keanu's words reached their crescendo, the subtle rhythm of his speech drawing every listener into the moment. He spoke not for attention, but to convey sincerity, allowing the weight of experience and empathy to resonate without embellishment. He addressed the new husband directly, his tone steady and filled with a quiet authority born of understanding, acknowledging the responsibility that comes with love, the privilege of sharing life with someone cherished, and the importance of honoring her happiness with unwavering respect. Each phrase carefully measured, he avoided condescension or bravado, choosing instead a language of mutual respect. He reminded the gathering that love is not a possession but a gift, delicate and resilient, requiring care, trust, and patience. He subtly reflected on his own journey, how he had learned to balance acceptance with hope, closure with goodwill, and the significance of stepping forward without resentment. There was no bitterness, only clarity, and a remarkable sense of emotional equilibrium that left an indelible impression on everyone present. By the time Keanu concluded, a palpable silence lingered in the room, filled with awe and introspection. Eyes glistened as the guests absorbed the depth of what had been expressed, recognizing the courage it took to honor both the past and the present so openly. The ex-wife's smile was radiant, her eyes reflecting gratitude and relief, a confirmation of the trust and respect that had defined their shared history. Even the new husband, initially reserved, offered a nod of understanding, a subtle gesture acknowledging the bridge of goodwill that had been extended to him. Keanu stepped back, not seeking applause, but carrying a sense of quiet fulfillment, aware that his words had conveyed a profound message. Love can be generous, grief can be transformed, and closure can be graceful. The emotional tension melted into shared warmth, an unspoken acknowledgement that this toast had succeeded in uniting the room not through spectacle, but through honesty, respect, and heartfelt sincerity, leaving everyone silently moved and profoundly changed. The room remained enveloped in a hushed reverence, as though time itself had slowed to allow the weight of Keanu's words to settle fully among the guests. Eyes turned, some glistening with unshed tears, as the ex-wife's expression radiated a mixture of pride, gratitude, and subtle relief. Her shoulders relaxed, a genuine smile spreading across her face, acknowledging not just the compliment, but the respect and understanding woven into every phrase. She had witnessed the evolution of their relationship. The distance traveled from youthful intensity to mature appreciation, and this moment encapsulated that journey with breathtaking clarity. Across the small space separating them, the new husband's reaction was equally telling. Initially, a subtle shock rippled across his features. His jaw tightened slightly, his eyes widening as he absorbed the depth and sincerity in Keanu's words. There was no pretense in Keanu's voice, no subtle competitive edge or hidden resentment. The shock slowly softened into appreciation, a quiet recognition of the rare integrity Keanu displayed. A nod of understanding followed, acknowledging that this wasn't a display for attention but an honest articulation of goodwill and respect, bridging the past and present in a single, eloquent gesture. As whispers began to circulate among the guests, a delicate hum of admiration filled the room. Conversations were tempered, subdued, with people leaning toward each other to quietly comment on the unusual, almost cinematic authenticity of what they had witnessed. It was not a dramatic declaration, not a performance designed to impress, but a heartfelt moment that resonated on multiple levels. Some reflected on their own relationships, others on the power of words delivered with clarity and compassion. Children watched with curiosity, sensing the emotional weight without fully understanding it, while older relatives nodded knowingly, recognizing the rare courage it took to stand openly in the presence of those you once loved and still honor deeply. Keanu remained composed, his posture relaxed but deliberate, allowing the resonance of his words to settle into the atmosphere without intrusion. He noticed subtle reactions throughout the room, a friend dabbing at a corner of her eye, a cousin's shoulders relaxing in quiet amazement, a colleague exchanging a brief, impressed glance with another. Each response, silent or whispered, confirmed the unexpected impact of his toast. It was not applause he sought, nor admiration, but a shared acknowledgement of sincerity, of a gesture that transcended the ordinary niceties of social expectation. The space seemed suspended, each breath measured, each glance lingering, just a moment longer than it would have otherwise. His ex-wife's eyes met his again, a brief, poignant exchange that needed no words. In that glance, a multitude of unspoken sentiments passed between them. Acknowledgement of shared history, mutual respect for the paths they had taken, and an understanding that their connection, while transformed, remained genuine. Her hand rested lightly on her bouquet, a small yet intimate gesture, and Keanu's mind quietly noted the elegance of her composure. There was no tension, no unhealed resentment, only the beauty of authenticity in human relationships, something far deeper than fleeting emotion, a realization that some moments exist purely for the affirmation of growth, understanding, and grace. Even the new husband, having recovered from the initial shock, displayed subtle yet profound changes in demeanor. His posture relaxed, and a quiet warmth entered his expression. He understood now that Keanu's words were not a challenge, but a blessing, an unexpected gift that reinforced trust and goodwill in their budding partnership. A small, appreciative smile appeared, almost imperceptible but unmistakably sincere. Keanu's internal satisfaction grew, tempered with humility, recognizing that closure was not just personal but relational. It rippled outward, touching others in ways that could not always be predicted. He felt the gravity of the moment, the rare balance of past reconciliation and present respect, and knew that this emotional honesty would be remembered long after the reception ended, quietly shaping perceptions, attitudes, and perhaps even lives in subtle, enduring ways. The room remained hushed for a few heartbeats longer, the silence filled with reflection rather than awkwardness. Keanu allowed himself a private moment to observe the small, intricate details around him. The way sunlight caught the crystal chandeliers, the gentle sway of the bridesmaids' dresses, the soft murmur of guests rediscovering their composure after the unexpected weight of his words. Each element seemed amplified, as if the world itself was pausing to acknowledge the sincerity of what had just been expressed. He felt a deep connection to the environment, aware that these carefully observed subtleties mirrored the layers of emotion within him. His ex-wife's lips curved into a subtle, appreciative smile, a gesture that carried volumes. It was the acknowledgement of a shared past, the recognition that despite their separate paths, a genuine bond persisted. Keanu noticed the new husband's gaze soften, and a respectful nod confirmed that mutual understanding had been established. Guests continued their murmured reactions, some exchanging glances as if silently agreeing on the rarity of witnessing such heartfelt, unguarded honesty in a social setting. The room's energy had shifted, transformed from routine celebration to a collective pause, a quiet homage to the depth of human connection and the courage it takes to speak openly from the heart. Keanu felt an inner release, a calm satisfaction settling into his chest. He realized that closure is not a singular moment, nor a finality imposed on emotion, but a series of conscious, deliberate choices expressed with integrity. His toast had bridged a gap between past and present, not by rekindling old feelings, but by affirming growth, respect, and generosity. He watched as conversations slowly resumed, lighter and more genuine, infused with the influence of the moment. Even as laughter and chatter returned to the room, the impression of his words lingered, subtle yet powerful, like the echo of a bell that continues long after it has been struck. As he returned to his seat, Keanu allowed himself a small, private smile, acknowledging the complexity of emotions, the triumph of maturity over envy, and the rare beauty of expressing love without expectation. In that instant, he understood that some gestures are timeless, their value immeasurable, and that the true reward lies not in applause, but in the quiet transformation they spark in others. The ripple of authenticity, compassion, and respect would endure, silently shaping memories, relationships, and hearts long after the day had ended. The first strains of the music signaled a transition in the evening, and the atmosphere subtly shifted. Guests began making their way to the dance floor, laughter mingling with the soft hum of the orchestra. Keanu observed from a respectful distance, his eyes drawn to his ex-wife as she stepped gracefully into the center of the polished floor. The lights caught the delicate details of her gown, illuminating her as if she were the centerpiece of a painting. She moved with a natural elegance, her smile radiant, embodying the joy and serenity that comes from finding a new chapter of happiness. Her new husband joined her, and Keanu noted the quiet confidence in his movements, the gentle way he held her hand, the small, affectionate gestures exchanged between them. It was evident in every glance, every subtle adjustment in posture, that this dance was more than ritual. It was a celebration of shared joy, a symbol of their partnership. Keanu felt a pang of nostalgia, recalling similar moments from his own past, but it was tinged with something different now. There was no jealousy, no longing for what once was, only admiration for the genuine happiness before him. The beauty of witnessing love evolve, of seeing someone he had cared for so deeply, thriving, resonated within him, quietly affirming the growth both of them had achieved. He allowed himself to focus on the surrounding energy as well, the laughter of children twirling with carefree delight, the warm glow of chandeliers reflecting off polished floors, the gentle sway of couples lost in their own world. Each sensory detail grounded him in the present, emphasizing the difference between memory and current experience. He could hear the low murmur of appreciative whispers, the subtle clinking of glasses, the soft rustle of fabric as the crowd moved in unison with the music. Amid this orchestrated chaos of celebration, Keanu found a moment of serenity. Watching from the sidelines, he realized that acceptance is a quiet, internal process, a gentle acknowledgement of change and human growth. It is in moments like these, when the world carries on around him and love is honored authentically, that he could feel the fullness of life, unburdened by regret or attachment. As the first dance continued, Keanu's gaze remained fixed on them, absorbing the harmony of their movements. The new husband guided her with care and attentiveness, each step flowing naturally into the next, and in that precision, Keanu saw the subtle language of trust and respect that defines a strong partnership. The happiness radiating from her was unmistakable, and he allowed himself to feel the warmth of it without interference. Like Mia's. But how could the other partner kill her? He released what he could see of the warmth of it, without interference. He reflected on how love transforms over time, how it shifts from the raw intensity of early passion to the steady, nurturing bond that comes from mutual understanding and shared experience. It was a lesson he had learned through his own journey, through missteps, reconciliation, and personal growth. And now he witnessed it embodied in another. The room was alive with movement. Other couples joined the floor, some gliding effortlessly, others laughing through stumbles. Keanu noticed the small gestures, the fleeting touches, the way hands met and lingered with care. These were the subtle markers of affection, the threads of connection that weave through the human experience. He considered his own relationships, the friendships and connections that had endured beyond romance, and felt a quiet pride in the ability to honor the happiness of another without seeking to possess it. He took a deep breath, letting the music fill him, a gentle reminder that life continues in its unpredictable rhythm, carrying each person forward, offering new joys alongside old memories. When the couple completed their first turn and guests began to cheer softly, Keanu felt a lightness in his chest. He smiled faintly, acknowledging the beauty of the moment without needing to be part of it. A family member approached, inviting him to join a brief dance, and he accepted with the same grace he had cultivated over the years. The interaction was brief, cordial, a simple acknowledgement of camaraderie, but it symbolized something more profound: the acceptance of life's evolving relationships, the ability to participate in joy without overshadowing it. The music swelled, the lights shimmered, and for a moment Keanu felt fully present, aware of the passage of time, the permanence of change, and the quiet joy that comes from witnessing love, untainted and sincere in its purest form. As the music shifted to a softer, slower tempo, Keanu stepped back slightly, observing from the edge of the dance floor. The gentle sway of couples, the soft glow of lights reflecting off crystal decorations, and the murmured laughter around him created an atmosphere that was both intimate and expansive. He noticed the way her eyes sparkled, catching the light, how her smile was effortless, genuine, the kind of smile that arises only when one is completely at ease and fully present. Seeing her like this, so content and radiant, stirred memories of their own times together: quiet mornings, spontaneous adventures, late-night conversations. But these recollections were now framed with acceptance rather than longing. They were threads of the past woven into the tapestry of the present, reminding him of what had been and what had evolved. He allowed himself to appreciate the contrast. The past's passion and turbulence had given way to calm and mutual respect. The new husband's presence was steady, confident, yet unobtrusive, complementing her energy rather than competing with it. Keanu reflected on the nature of human growth, how one learns to honor another's happiness without feeling diminished, how maturity is measured by the ability to embrace joy for others as fully as one would seek it for oneself. The realization brought him a sense of serenity, a deep acknowledgement that life's transformations are not losses, but evolutions, opportunities to witness and participate in beauty without attachment. Finally, the song drew to its close, and the couple's hands parted, lingering briefly in a gesture of shared understanding before they joined the applauding guests. Keanu stepped back, letting the moment settle in the air, allowing it to imprint itself in memory. He moved through the remaining dances with quiet grace, occasionally smiling at familiar faces, exchanging light conversation, all while maintaining an inner calm that had been hard-won over years of reflection and self-discovery. In the laughter, in the warmth, in the soft music and shifting lights, Keanu found a profound sense of acceptance. He had witnessed love in its evolved form, celebrated it without claim or expectation, and in doing so experienced a rare clarity. That closure is not the end, but a beginning. A recognition of the richness of human connection, and a readiness to move forward with grace, composure, and a heart open to life's continuing journey. Keanu stepped away from the lingering crowd near the dance floor, guided by the soft echo of music and muted conversation. He noticed a small alcove near the far end of the reception hall, bathed in a gentle golden light, where shadows softened the edges of the celebration. The new husband had also drifted toward this quieter space, and Keanu saw the moment as an opportunity, a chance to connect beyond the surface politeness, to offer words that might resonate. Approaching with a measured, calm demeanor, he greeted him with a firm handshake and a nod that carried more warmth than formal civility. The new husband's initial expression was cautious, a mixture of respect and slight unease, as though he were unsure whether this conversation would be ceremonial or revealing. Keanu began by acknowledging the depth of the day, the joy radiating from his ex-wife, and the significance of the new partnership. He spoke gently but sincerely, emphasizing the shared responsibility they now carried in supporting someone they both cared about deeply. "I've watched her grow in so many ways," Keanu said quietly, "and I can see how happy she is with you. That's all anyone could hope for." His tone was steady, devoid of judgment or personal expectation, offering clarity without imposition. The new husband's posture eased slightly, the tension around his shoulders melting as he absorbed the authenticity in Keanu's voice. They spoke about trust, about understanding that happiness is not a zero-sum game, and about the importance of generosity in relationships. Keanu shared insights drawn from experience, recalling the challenges and joys of navigating a long-term partnership and the lessons learned from letting go with grace. He spoke of patience, empathy, and choosing kindness over rivalry, framing his words as guidance born from reflection rather than instruction. The new husband listened intently, surprised at the candidness and depth of the conversation, and gradually a quiet respect took shape. In the stillness of that alcove, removed from the eyes of the gathering, an unspoken understanding emerged, a recognition that dignity and generosity could coexist with past attachments, and that human connection could thrive when nurtured with honesty, openness, and compassion. The new husband shifted slightly, adjusting to the intimacy of the conversation. There was a subtle vulnerability in his eyes, a silent acknowledgement that he had not expected such openness from Keanu. "I appreciate this," he said quietly, almost in disbelief. "It's rare to meet someone who genuinely wishes well, without reservation." Keanu offered a small, calm smile, the kind that carried reassurance without any hint of pride or judgment. It was not about proving himself, but about affirming the value of empathy and integrity. He nodded gently and replied, "We all carry pieces of the past with us, and how we honor them defines who we are today. Happiness isn't about winning or losing. It's about creating space for others to thrive." Keanu's words were deliberate, measured, yet carried a weight that seemed to settle comfortably in the new husband's mind. He spoke of shared responsibilities, not only to their partner but to the broader circle of family and friends whose lives intertwined with their own. "She deserves someone who listens, who respects her choices, and who finds joy in her happiness," Keanu continued. The new husband absorbed this quietly, nodding as he contemplated the sincerity behind the words. There was a subtle shift, a bridge forming between them that went beyond polite gestures. This wasn't a competition for approval. It was a mutual recognition of human dignity, of the potential for connection, even amidst complicated histories. They spoke further about the nuances of trust and generosity, the small decisions that shape relationships, and the importance of patience when emotions run deep. Keanu shared anecdotes from his own experiences, not to highlight triumphs or mistakes, but to offer insight into the quiet power of thoughtful action. There was a moment of laughter, soft and unassuming, born from a shared recognition of life's unpredictability. It was an acknowledgement that no one had all the answers, yet genuine care and understanding could guide the way. In that quiet alcove, removed from celebration and ceremony, an unexpected camaraderie emerged. Both men understood that their shared concern for someone they cherished had created a connection stronger than rivalry or fear, a connection rooted in respect, wisdom, and the simple yet profound act of wishing another human being well. The new husband's expression softened further, a subtle exhale of relief escaping as he leaned slightly forward. "I never thought I'd feel this supported," he admitted, almost in a whisper. Keanu's gaze remained steady, calm, and warm, carrying no judgment, only the quiet weight of experience and understanding. "Support doesn't diminish your strength," Keanu replied. "It simply acknowledges that we're all learning, all navigating, and all striving to do better for those we care about. There's no shame in guidance, just growth." In that moment, both men shared a rare understanding. The conversation transcended conventional expectations of rivalry or comparison. Keanu spoke of the invisible threads that connected past and present, the way shared memories, joys, and even regrets could coexist without undermining new beginnings. He emphasized the importance of celebrating love without ego, of valuing kindness over competition, and of nurturing happiness as a shared responsibility rather than a personal conquest. The new husband listened intently, absorbing each word not as critique or instruction, but as a gift of perspective and humanity. Keanu also reminded him, softly, that life rarely followed a linear path. There would be challenges, moments of doubt, and times when patience was tested, yet every thoughtful act of care strengthened the foundation of trust. "It's in those quiet choices," Keanu said. "The moments when we choose understanding over pride, patience over impulse, that we truly honor the people we love." A small nod, almost imperceptible, passed between them, a silent agreement that each had the capacity to rise above insecurities, to embrace generosity, and to foster happiness in its purest form. As the conversation drew to a natural close, there was a lingering sense of respect and reassurance. Keanu felt a quiet satisfaction, a confirmation that his presence, his words, and his intentions had created a subtle but meaningful bridge. The new husband seemed steadier, more confident, carrying with him not just the guidance of a guest, but the acknowledgement of a man who understood the depth of love's evolution. They exchanged a final, firm handshake, a gesture that conveyed mutual understanding, gratitude, and shared commitment to the future. In that secluded corner of the wedding venue, amidst laughter and celebration elsewhere, a rare and profound connection had been formed, rooted in respect, wisdom, and the quiet generosity of the heart. Keanu stood at the edge of the gathering, quietly observing the family he had once been at the center of and the new constellation of relationships forming before him. His ex-wife moved among the children and relatives with an effortless grace, her laughter light and genuine, blending seamlessly with the soft hum of conversation and the occasional burst of music from the nearby string quartet. The new husband, initially reserved, now engaged naturally with the children, guiding them through small games and gentle instruction, with patience that spoke of quiet confidence and care. Every glance, every shared smile between them created an almost tangible sense of harmony, a rhythm of family life that was both comforting and inspiring to witness. Keanu's attention shifted to the little moments that often went unnoticed but carried so much meaning. A child offered flowers to the bride, who accepted them with a radiant smile, kneeling just enough to meet their eyes. Laughter erupted among cousins, trading inside jokes, aunts and uncles exchanging warm gestures of pride and affection. The new husband leaned down, brushing a strand of hair from a stepchild's face, his manner gentle and attentive. Keanu absorbed it all, feeling the complex layers of human connection, the unspoken bonds that defined this new family unit. It was a dance of relationships, nuanced, fluid, and alive, reminding him that family was far more than shared genetics. It was care, presence, and intention woven together. As he watched, Keanu reflected on his own journey. Love had taught him patience, loss had imparted resilience, and acceptance had offered a sense of freedom. He recognized in these interactions the culmination of lessons learned over years of experience, the ability to witness happiness without need, without jealousy, but with genuine goodwill. Each small interaction, the reassuring touch of a hand, a whispered joke, a moment of encouragement, became a testament to the beauty of intentional human connection. Gratitude swelled within him, a quiet acknowledgement that the path he had walked, with all its twists and turns, had led to this moment of clarity, understanding, and serenity. Keanu's gaze shifted to the extended relatives mingling with the couple and children, noting the subtle layers of interaction that defined the gathering. Grandparents offered gentle advice and soft words of encouragement, their eyes shining with pride as they observed the new family dynamics taking shape. Siblings exchanged teasing comments, and friends who had known the bride and groom for years shared knowing smiles, their laughter punctuating the quiet hum of the celebration. Keanu noticed the rhythm of the gathering, the ebb and flow of conversation, the natural pauses where genuine attention was given, and the warm energy that seemed to radiate from this collective experience. Amid the lively chatter, Keanu caught small, intimate gestures that spoke volumes. A child tugged at the bride's gown to show a drawing, her face lighting up as she knelt down, her full attention on the moment. The new husband offered an encouraging nod, his arm resting lightly on the child's shoulder, a quiet reassurance that he was present, that he belonged. Keanu's heart recognized these gestures as the essence of family, being seen, being valued, and choosing to care. Each interaction reinforced the idea that love, respect, and attentiveness were far more meaningful than any title or role, that the fabric of family was woven in the everyday acts of kindness and attentiveness. Keanu felt a growing sense of gratitude, not just for what he witnessed, but for the lessons these moments reflected. He recalled past conflicts with clarity, misunderstandings that once seemed insurmountable, arguments over small slights that now felt trivial, and the weight of regrets that had lingered far too long. Watching this family interact, he understood that those past struggles had prepared him to truly see and appreciate what was unfolding now. Life's complexity had taught him humility and generosity, and in these quiet, layered observations, he found reassurance that people could evolve, that happiness could be nurtured, and that the bonds of family, though sometimes altered, could endure and flourish in new forms. The warmth of the room, the laughter, and the shared joy deepened his sense of peace, a silent acknowledgement that he was witnessing something rare and profoundly human. Keanu's attention moved to the subtle exchanges between the children and the adults, small moments that revealed the true heartbeat of the family. A stepchild handed flowers to the bride, who crouched down with a warm smile, accepting them with a gentle embrace that spoke of encouragement and inclusion. Nearby, the new husband whispered something that made the child giggle uncontrollably, and Keanu's eyes softened as he watched the trust and connection flourish in real time. The fluidity of these interactions, so natural and unforced, reflected the patience, care, and attention required to build genuine bonds. Each small gesture, a smile, a touch, a nod, carried significance far beyond its immediate appearance, illustrating that love and family were cultivated through intentional presence rather than expectation. Keanu reflected on his own journey, the roads that had led him here, and the moments of both triumph and regret that had shaped him. He considered how much he had learned about empathy, patience, and unconditional support, and how these lessons now allowed him to observe without envy, without interference, and with a full heart. He noticed the pride in the eyes of those watching the children, the subtle glances exchanged between adults that conveyed shared understanding, and the soft laughter that rose and fell like music weaving through the room. Every interaction seemed to affirm the value of presence and the importance of acknowledging one another's growth, each gesture a testament to the quiet power of human connection. As the celebration continued around him, Keanu felt a deep sense of serenity. The warmth, laughter, and shared experiences of the family offered a mirror of what was possible when individuals embraced generosity and respect, even in the face of change. He realized that family was not defined solely by history or biology, but by the consistent choice to show up, to listen, to care, and to celebrate one another. The joy he witnessed reinforced the idea that love could evolve without diminishing the significance of the past, that happiness could be honored without regret, and that he could find peace in supporting others' joy while continuing his own path forward. In these quiet observations, Keanu understood that he was not merely a witness, but a participant in the broader human story of growth, acceptance, and enduring connection. The night had settled over the venue, leaving only the faint glow of string lights and lanterns to mark the spaces where laughter and music had filled the air just hours before. Guests had gradually begun to depart, hugs exchanged, smiles lingering as farewells were said. Keanu stepped away from the remaining chatter, seeking a quiet spot on the balcony that overlooked the gardens. The cool night air brushed against his face, carrying with it the faint scent of roses and pine, and for the first time in hours, he felt an undisturbed moment of solitude. Leaning against the railing, he allowed his mind to drift through the events of the day, tracing every glance, every smile, every gesture that had unfolded before him. He thought about the way his ex-wife had radiated joy, the effortless grace in which she embraced her new life and the people around her. Each interaction had been a reminder of how love can grow, change, and persist in forms that do not always align with personal desire, but still hold immense beauty. Keanu's reflections wandered to his own journey, the mistakes he had made, the moments of impatience or misunderstanding that had once clouded his relationships. Yet tonight, he realized that those missteps were not merely failures, but lessons, stepping stones toward a more grounded understanding of compassion and emotional resilience. In observing the family, the blended connections, and the laughter of children, he recognized how much effort and care had been poured into building these moments of connection, and he felt gratitude not only for witnessing it, but for the opportunity to have been a part of the larger story. His thoughts then shifted inward, considering the purpose of attending the wedding. It had not been a casual decision, nor a simple social obligation. Keanu understood that this evening was an exercise in self-awareness as much as in courtesy. Every smile he offered, every word of support he spoke, had been guided by a conscious effort to honor not just the happiness of others, but the integrity of his own character. Presence mattered, he realized, as did the capacity to allow others their joy without envy or resentment. This awareness brought with it a gentle sense of satisfaction, the quiet acknowledgement that growth is measured not only by personal success, but by the ability to stand in the midst of life's turning points with dignity and grace. Keanu closed his eyes for a moment, listening to the faint echo of footsteps and soft laughter drifting from the last remaining guests. The music had long since stopped, leaving only the gentle rustling of leaves in the evening breeze. He reflected on the emotional currents that had moved through the day, the subtle shifts in tension and understanding that had defined each interaction. Watching his ex-wife share quiet, tender moments with her new husband had been unexpectedly moving. There was a purity to their connection that went beyond the surface of a wedding celebration. It was a testament to shared values, patience, and the willingness to embrace life together with openness. Keanu felt no sting of loss, only admiration for the journey they had all taken, and the courage required to arrive at this point of mutual respect and genuine happiness. Memories of their past interwove seamlessly with the present, each recollection tinged with a mixture of nostalgia and clarity. He thought of the arguments that had seemed insurmountable at the time, the misunderstandings that had once driven wedges between them, and the quiet moments of laughter that had reminded him of why their bond had existed at all. In these recollections, he found perspective. Life's emotional complexity is often best navigated through patience and honesty. He realized that forgiveness was not merely an act toward another person, but a gift to oneself, a way to release lingering burdens and allow space for growth. The lessons of yesterday were not erased by today. They were amplified, guiding him toward a deeper understanding of what it meant to love and to care without possessiveness or expectation. As he gazed out over the darkened garden, illuminated by the soft halo of lantern light, Keanu allowed himself to acknowledge the subtle triumph in attending the wedding. This evening had demanded courage, not the courage of physical action or public display, but the courage of emotional honesty. He had approached situations that might have provoked jealousy or discomfort with calm observation and sincere intent. The quiet pride he felt was not for recognition from others, but for the self-respect earned by embracing the role of witness and supporter. In that serene moment, he understood that presence, empathy, and the willingness to celebrate others' happiness are acts of strength, shaping not only the lives of those around him, but also the integrity of one's own spirit. Keanu leaned back against the railing, letting the cool night air settle around him. The sky stretched wide and calm, a mirror to the sense of clarity he felt within. Each flicker of light from the distant lanterns seemed to underscore the quiet revelations of the day. He reflected on how much he had changed over the years, how the passage of time had tempered his impulses and reshaped his understanding of love, respect, and personal dignity. What once might have felt like a challenge to his pride or an emotional burden now appeared as an opportunity, a moment to practice grace, empathy, and humility. Being here tonight had not been about revisiting old attachments. It had been about honoring growth, witnessing joy, and recognizing that life's fulfillment often comes from the happiness of others as much as one's own. He thought about the subtle gestures he had observed during the celebration, the way his ex-wife's eyes lit up in genuine delight, the new husband's careful attentiveness, the shared laughter of children and extended family. These small, seemingly ordinary interactions carried extraordinary significance. They reflected the essence of human connection, respect, understanding, and the effort to foster a nurturing environment for those you care about. Keanu realized that his decision to attend the wedding had been a conscious step toward embracing these principles fully. It was an affirmation that past relationships need not define the present, that love could evolve, and that personal growth often required the courage to step aside and support happiness without interference. Sitting alone, Keanu felt a profound sense of completion. The wedding had been more than a social event. It had been a milestone in his emotional journey. He had faced potential discomfort, navigated complex feelings, and emerged with a strengthened sense of self. Closure had not come through dramatic confrontation or final declarations, but through observation, respect, and silent acknowledgement. The night air carried the faint scent of flowers, mingled with distant echoes of joy and laughter that still lingered in memory. Keanu closed his eyes, letting a soft smile spread across his face, appreciating the lessons, the serenity, and the quiet triumph of attending not for others, but for the affirmation of his own growth, resilience, and unwavering capacity for empathy. Keanu moved slowly toward the edge of the reception hall, the ambient hum of conversation and laughter fading slightly as he approached his ex-wife and her new husband. The room seemed to contract around him in that moment, the weight of years of shared history pressing gently against his chest. He looked at her, noting the familiar warmth in her smile, the soft glow of happiness that radiated from her face. There was no tension, no trace of resentment, only genuine contentment. He extended his hand first, a simple gesture that carried everything he had learned about patience, acceptance, and the quiet power of grace. She met his gaze with an understanding that needed no words, her hand warm and steady in his, as they shared a handshake that lingered just a fraction longer than polite expectation. In that small moment, the past and present intersected, forming a bridge of mutual respect that was deeper than any lingering regrets or unspoken thoughts. The new husband stepped forward, his expression a mix of curiosity and appreciation. Keanu inclined his head slightly, a silent acknowledgement of the trust and responsibility that had brought them together tonight. Their handshake was firm yet understated, a gesture that conveyed equality and shared purpose rather than rivalry. It was remarkable, Keanu thought, how such a simple act could carry so much meaning, encapsulating the ideals of dignity, generosity, and human connection. The three of them stood together, a subtle tableau of reconciliation and acceptance. Keanu's eyes flickered briefly to the surrounding guests, noticing quiet smiles, whispers of admiration, and the gentle nods that spoke of respect for the character he had displayed. It was a moment that transcended social convention, a rare instance in which the power of empathy and thoughtful action resonated through the room without a single dramatic declaration. As the conversation wound down, Keanu offered a soft word of gratitude to both his ex-wife and her husband, expressing appreciation for including him in this important day. His tone was warm, measured, and sincere, emphasizing his support for their happiness while simultaneously affirming his own journey of growth. They shared a few quiet laughs over remembered moments, the easy familiarity of shared history mingling with the excitement of new beginnings. Every smile, every nod, every subtle gesture carried layers of meaning, creating an emotional resonance that lingered even as the moment drew to a close. Keanu could feel the weight of closure settling around him, a tangible sense of completion that filled the space between past regrets and present peace. Keanu stepped back slightly, allowing a natural pause in the farewell, giving both his ex-wife and her new husband space to respond. He watched her eyes, noticing a subtle glimmer of emotion that spoke to the bond they had once shared, and a recognition of the respect he continued to carry for her. He gave a small, almost imperceptible nod, a silent acknowledgement that all was well between them now. It was a quiet moment, but heavy with significance, a testament to the lessons learned over years of love, disappointment, and eventual acceptance. He had come here not to rekindle what was past, but to honor it, to offer support without expectation, and to leave with dignity intact. The new husband's shoulders relaxed noticeably, as if he too had sensed the sincerity behind Keanu's words and gestures. There was no competition here, only shared commitment to happiness and the unspoken understanding that love, in its truest form, was generous enough to allow for such grace. Guests nearby shifted subtly, their conversations lowering in volume as they sensed the gravity of the farewell. Some watched with admiration, recognizing the emotional complexity behind Keanu's composure, the patience and generosity it took to navigate this moment without ego or possessiveness. Parents with children nearby glanced discreetly, perhaps silently, taking note of the quiet power of restraint and empathy. Couples exchanged whispers, drawing comparisons to their own relationships, while friends and family observed the choreography of mutual respect unfolding. Keanu's movements were deliberate, small gestures imbued with weight, a brief touch on her arm, a lingering glance, a gentle handshake with her husband that conveyed sincerity rather than formality. Every action was intentional, reflecting years of introspection, emotional resilience, and the wisdom gained from navigating life's intricate tapestry of love and loss. As the final words of farewell were exchanged, Keanu felt a gentle release in his chest, a sense of closure that was both deeply personal and profoundly universal. He could feel the history of their shared life settle into a quiet peace, untainted by bitterness or longing. The moment was fleeting, yet eternal in its emotional resonance. Guests turned back to their own conversations, laughter returning softly, the celebration continuing around him. But Keanu remained aware of the inner transformation that had taken place. Walking away now would not signify absence or regret, but rather the culmination of understanding, growth, and the quiet fulfillment that comes from loving selflessly. Keanu took a deep breath and began to step toward the exit, his movements calm and deliberate. Each stride felt lighter, as though the weight of old emotions had lifted, replaced by a quiet satisfaction that comes only from true closure. Behind him, he could hear the faint echo of laughter and conversation, the soft strains of music still drifting through the hall, yet he felt entirely centered in his own thoughts. His ex-wife's smile lingered in his mind, warm and genuine, a reflection of the happiness she had found. Her new husband, now relaxed and appreciative, had offered a nod of mutual respect, a silent acknowledgement of the bond Keanu had honored today. The small gestures, the handshake, the hug, the lingering eye contact, felt like threads woven into the fabric of the evening, each one reinforcing the dignity and grace that had guided his every action. As he passed other guests, their subtle glances and quiet whispers reminded him that moments like these, though private in their emotional weight, resonate outward. A few raised eyebrows and gentle smiles followed him, witnesses to the rare authenticity of a man who could confront the past with humility, acknowledge the present with grace, and step into the future without ego. Keanu's own reflections continued, quietly affirming the lessons embedded in the day, the value of patience, the strength found in letting go, and the enduring beauty of acting from a place of pure goodwill. He realized that love is not always about possession or reunion, but about supporting others' happiness and finding fulfillment in the selfless act of witnessing it. The evening air greeted him as he emerged from the venue, cool and soothing. The lights of the celebration glimmered behind him, warm and inviting, yet he felt a serene detachment, an inner peace that came from knowing he had done everything he could to honor the past, celebrate the present, and leave without regret. Each step forward symbolized more than the distance from the reception. It marked an emotional milestone, a quiet triumph of character, compassion, and maturity. He carried with him the knowledge that love, when offered without expectation, has the power to heal, to bridge divides, and to leave a lasting impact, not only on those it touches directly, but on the person who gives it freely. And with that, Keanu Reeves walked away, unburdened, content, and profoundly at peace. Keanu stepped out into the quiet streets, the night embracing him with its cool, gentle air. The wedding lights faded behind him, leaving only the soft glow of city lamps stretching along the avenues. He walked slowly, taking in the subtle hum of life around him, the distant sound of traffic, the occasional laughter drifting from a nearby cafe, the rhythm of footsteps echoing softly on the pavement. Every detail seemed sharper, more vivid, as if the night itself had invited him to pause and reflect. He thought back to the anxiety that had stirred within him earlier that day, the nervous anticipation that had knotted his stomach as he approached the reception. It felt almost foreign now, replaced by a calm awareness of the growth he had achieved and the dignity he had maintained. Memories of the past, both sweet and bitter, played across his mind. He remembered the arguments and misunderstandings, the moments of regret and frustration, and the times when he had questioned whether closure would ever feel possible. And yet, in the presence of his ex-wife, her new husband, and their blended circle of family and friends, he had found a way to navigate each interaction with grace. The toast he had delivered, carefully crafted in thought and feeling, still lingered in his memory, each word chosen to honor the love they had shared and to bless the new chapter in her life. He reflected on the private conversation with her husband, the unexpected mutual understanding and respect that had formed in those few quiet moments, and the fleeting, serene joy he had experienced while watching the first dance. Each scene from the evening now felt like a thread in a tapestry, woven together by care, thoughtfulness, and the courage to embrace the present fully. As he moved through the streets, the city lights shimmered like distant stars, mirroring the subtle, enduring glow of the emotions he carried within. Keanu considered the lessons that had emerged from this experience. the value of acknowledging happiness without envy, the importance of maintaining dignity even in complex emotional landscapes, and the quiet power of offering love without expectation. These insights did not feel abstract or distant. They were alive, pulsing with clarity and resonance in the cool night air. He realized that life's most meaningful moments often arrive when we release our attachments to outcomes, when we focus on the joy and growth of others while honoring our own journey. The night seemed to breathe with him, offering a space where reflection, understanding, and personal insight could flourish. Keanu's thoughts drifted to the smiles he had witnessed throughout the evening, the small, quiet gestures that spoke volumes about connection and care. He remembered seeing the children hand flowers to their mother, their faces bright with excitement and affection, the way laughter bubbled naturally among friends and relatives, and the shared glances that communicated unspoken pride and contentment. Each moment reminded him that family, love, and happiness were not confined to the past he had shared with his ex-wife. They existed in the present, evolving, growing, and transforming in ways that were beautiful and unexpected. He felt a profound gratitude for having been part of that moment, for having observed and contributed to a space where love could be celebrated without ego or pretense. As he continued walking, Keanu allowed himself to relive the private conversation he had shared with her new husband, the exchange of thoughts about respect, shared responsibilities, and valuing happiness above rivalry. The way the man had listened intently, absorbing each word with quiet appreciation, had left a lasting impression on him. It reminded Keanu that generosity of spirit and emotional courage could create connections that transcended old attachments, that trust and respect were choices we make intentionally, and that understanding often arises when we act with honesty and compassion. The realization brought a subtle warmth to his chest, a sense that he had navigated the evening not only for others, but for himself, affirming his own growth and resilience. The reflections deepened as he reached a small, secluded park, the soft rustling of leaves harmonizing with the distant murmur of the city. He paused on a bench, allowing himself a few quiet moments to consider the journey that had brought him here. Every step, every challenge, every decision to let go, forgive, and honor love in its purest form culminated in this sense of serene accomplishment. He recognized that life's most important lessons were often revealed through experiences that demanded patience, humility, and emotional clarity. Observing the gentle glow of the city around him, he understood that embracing the happiness of others while maintaining dignity and grace created a ripple that extended far beyond a single evening. The weight of past regrets had lifted, replaced by a steady, quiet joy, the kind that comes from knowing one has acted with integrity, compassion, and a generous heart. Keanu reached into his pocket and pulled out an old photograph, a simple image of him and his ex-wife from years ago, smiling, carefree, and unaware of the paths their lives would take. Holding it gently, he let a soft smile cross his face, not with longing, but with acceptance. The image was a reminder of love in its many forms, joyful, challenging, fleeting, and lasting in memory. He realized that letting go did not diminish the value of what they had shared, it enhanced it, transforming nostalgia into gratitude and bittersweet remembrance into peaceful reflection. The night air was cool against his skin as he considered the lessons the evening had reinforced. Life was not about clinging to the past or cultivating resentment. It was about observing, participating, and responding with honesty and kindness. Seeing someone you once loved genuinely happy was not a source of pain, but an opportunity to practice generosity of spirit. He thought about the quiet power of humility, the courage required to prioritize others' happiness alongside your own, and the serenity that comes from choosing grace over ego. Each memory, each interaction, from the wedding, had etched these truths more deeply into his understanding of life and relationships. With one last glance at the city lights shimmering below, Keanu whispered to himself that he was ready for whatever came next, carrying with him the clarity and calm that came from having faced a difficult situation with integrity and compassion. The evening had been more than a celebration for others. It had been a milestone in his own journey toward emotional maturity and self-awareness. He thought of the viewers who might watch his story, reflecting on their own lives, relationships, and moments that demanded grace. He imagined them asking themselves the questions that had guided him tonight. Have you ever had to wish someone happiness while letting go? And what would you say to someone from your past if you had the chance today? The answers he knew could shape not only individual experiences, but the way love and respect rippled through the lives around them. Finally, tucking the photograph back into his pocket, he took a slow, steady breath, feeling the peace settle within him. He turned away from the balcony and began walking back toward his car, each step measured, calm, and intentional. The evening's lessons of love, forgiveness, humility, and the quiet beauty of human connection remained with him. In letting go fully, he had found something greater, a renewed sense of self, and the understanding that true grace is expressed not in words alone, but in the quiet dignity of our actions and the depth of our hearts.